THDCIL, a power generation PSU of Government of India, has now forayed into solar power and developed its first 50 megawatt solar power project at Kasaragod, Kerala. Committed to Kerala's power development by adding clean and green solar power. THDC India Limited, generating power, transmitting prosperity.
I would like to extend my heartfelt wishes to Social Media Center of THDCIL for their intervention by conducting a webinar on the theme Journey of Hydro Power Sector and its contribution in making India energy surplus under the aegis of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We are all aware that development of hydropower sector is extremely significant for energy sufficiency and grid stability of the country. I am sure that the webinar will help in innovative stakeholders interface and will be informative for today's generation. Jai Hind.
नमस्कार, गुड इवनिंग। जल ही जीवन है, जल है तो कल है। जल शक्ति के इस महत्व को समझते हुए सोशल मीडिया सेंटर THDC इंडिया लिमिटेड ने आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव के अंतर्गत जर्नी ऑफ हाइड्रो सेक्टर इन इंडिया एंड इट्स कंट्रीब्यूशन इन मेकिंग इंडिया एनर्जी सरप्लस नामक थीम पर एक वेबिनार का आज आयोजन किया है। जैसा कि आप सब जानते हैं कि ये एक सामान्य चर्चा है इस थीम के ऊपर, और इसके तहत जो हमारा मकसद है वो मकसद है हाइड्रो सेक्टर, पावर सेक्टर में हो रहे बदलावों और उपलब्धियों को आम जनता तक पहुंचाना। Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce today's illustrious panel, which will deliberate on the topic Journey of Hydro Sector in India and its contribution in making India energy surplus. So first of all, I would like to introduce today's panel. We are joined by Mr. P.K. Agarwal, Executive Director Technical, THDC India Limited, Shri Amitabh Tripathi, Senior Executive Director, Vapcos Limited. We have with us Mr. V.R. Srivastava, General Manager, Civil Corporate Planning Division, NHPC Limited. We also have with us Shri Abhishek Agarwal, Chief General Manager and Head IT, Energy Efficiency Services Limited. We have with us Shri Yogesh Kumar, Superintending Engineer and Nodal Officer, Smart Meters, Uttar Pradesh Power Corporation. We are also joined by Shri R.N. Singh, Executive Director, Vishnugad Peoplekoti Hydroelectric Project, THDC India Limited. And we also have with us Shri L.P. Joshi, General Manager, EM Design, THDC India Limited. Now, I would like to request Shri P.K. Agarwal, ED Technical, to formally welcome and give their opening remarks on this theme and set the tone of the webinar. Shri P.K. Agarwal, ED Technical, THDC India Limited.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. On behalf of THDC India Limited, I welcome eminent speakers from various organizations in this webinar. For setting tone of the discussions, I will start. Journey of hydropower development in India started in the year 1897 with establishment of a small hydroelectric plant of 130 kilowatt capacity near Darjeeling in West Bengal. Since then, development of hydroelectric power in the country have made rapid strides. The hydro installed capacity in India at the time of independence was only 508 megawatt and maximum unit size was of 22 megawatt only. Now, the installed capacity has risen to 46,322 megawatt and unit size, maximum unit size has increased to 250 megawatt. Overall, hydro share at the time of independence was about 37%, and that went up to about 50% during 1962-63. Thereafter, it started declining steadily because that was a phase of rapid industrialization. Thermal power took front seat as to fulfill the growing needs of energy requirement in the country. However, hydro could not keep required pace due to issues like cumbersome procedures of various clearances. अब हाइड्रो में वेरियस क्लियरेंसेस जैसे एनवायरमेंट क्लियरेंस और फॉरेस्ट क्लियरेंस एंड इकोनॉमिक क्लियरेंस फ्रॉम सीए दैट इज रिक्वायर्ड, दैट टेक्स टाइम. और उसके बाद जो लैंड एक्विजिशन है दैट इज आल्सो ए कम्बरसम प्रोसीजर. फॉरेस्ट लैंड इज इन्वॉल्व, दैट इज ए सेपरेट टाइम टेकिंग जॉब. Rehabilitation and resettlement of project affected families, law and order. अब जितने भी project affected families हैं उनको aspirations रहती हैं jobs की. They want to get more and more from developers. इसके कारण issues आते हैं, projects got delays. और besides this, geological surprises during construction. और उसके बाद जो कंट्रेक्चुअल इश्यूज स्टार्ट हो जाते हैं जिसके कारण प्रोजेक्ट्स गेट ऑन डिलेज. इन सब इश्यूज के कारण हाइड्रो सेक्टर थोड़ा डिले करता गया और उसका जो पेस है और शेयर है धीरे धीरे डिक्लाइन होकर नाउ इट इज ओनली 12%. एट प्रेजेंट tariff of hydro is also expensive in comparison to other sources like wind and solar. Discoms are not ready to sign power purchase agreements, etc. And because wind and solar power tariffs have plunged to very low. So all these problems are due to these problems, hydro sector is not getting at required pace. So after various discussions, etc., Government of India in March 2019 has notified various measures to promote hydropower sectors. They have listed some measures. Number one is declaring large hydro projects of more than 25 megawatts as renewable sources. Likewise, second is hydro purchase obligation has been notified as a separate entity within known solar RPO. जैसे विंड सोलर एंड विंड को मस्ट रन का स्टेटस मिला है, ऐसे ही न्यू हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट्स को विद इन दिस आरपीओ एचपीओ कैटेगरी में इनको पावर परचेज का बेनिफिट मिलेगा. एंड गवर्नमेंट हैज अलाउड also debt repayment period of 18 years in place of 12 years, and project life has been increased from 35 years to 40 years. Further, escalating tariff of 2% annually has been introduced. These measures will provide tariff rationalization. Government of India has also decided to give budgetary support for flood moderation and enabling infrastructure. So I am sure with these measures, hydro sector in India will certainly help and grow rapidly in future. Thank you, Mr. Gaurav.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर. मुझे लगता है कि आपने जो इस वेबिनार की टोन को सेट किया है वो हमें बहुत मदद करेगी इस थीम के विभिन्न आयामों को समझने में, ताकि हम उसे समझ सकें और आम जनता तक पहुंचा सकें कि देश में बिजली की जो सेक्टर है उसमें खास करके हाइड्रो सेक्टर का क्या योगदान है, क्योंकि जहां तक हमने देखा है कि जब बिजली की बात होती है तो बिजली को एक जनरलाइज कॉन्सेप्ट के तरीके से लिया जाता है। इस चीज पे बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रेस करने की जरूरत है कि वाटर एज अ रिसोर्स जो हमारे पास अवेलेबल है, उस रिसोर्स का इस्तेमाल करके हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्लीन एनर्जी बनाएं, ताकि इंडिया का जो रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी टारगेट है उसको भी पूरा करने में मदद मिले, और विश्व स्तर पर जो हमारे एनवायरमेंटल कमिटमेंट्स हैं या नेशनली डिटरमिन्ड कमिटमेंट्स हैं उनको पूरा करने में हाइड्रो सेक्टर के योगदान को ज्यादा से ज्यादा आगे बढ़ाया जाए और इनकी उपलब्धियों को आम जनता तक पहुंचाया जाए। अब जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं कि आज के हमारे वेबिनार का जो थीम है वो थीम है जर्नी ऑफ हाइड्रो सेक्टर एंड इट्स कंट्रीब्यूशन इन मेकिंग इंडिया एनर्जी सरप्लस। इस थीम के ऊपर मैं चाहूंगा कि हमारा जो एक्सपर्ट पैनल है वो एक एक करके अपने विचार साझा करे। सबसे पहले मैं रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूंगा श्री अमिताभ त्रिपाठी, सीनियर एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर वैपकॉस लिमिटेड। उनसे अनुरोध है कि इस थीम के ऊपर उनके जो विचार हैं वो हम सबके साथ और आम जनता के साथ अपने विचार को साझा करें। ओवर टू यू।
Good afternoon to all, and thank you so much, Mr. Gaurav. First of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to THDC and ELITS for inviting WAPCOS and myself for participating in this wonderful webinar. And I'm also delighted to see very senior officials and experts from premier companies like THDC and NHPC. And I'm sure that during this webinar, we would be benefited from their experiences and views also in this webinar on a very, very important subject of journey of hydropower over the years, and what are the roadmap and way forward into it. And also, I would like to explain Mr. Agrawal has very nicely encapsulated and gave a very nice overview as to how the hydro sector has progressed in India. I would just like to add few things. He has already covered most of the things, but I would like to add one thing, especially the reason, one of the reasons for the decline after 1963. If you look at the growth before 1963 and of late, primarily I feel being in the consultancy area, as to hydro sites, earlier were quite easy, and the best sites were actually chosen for developing the hydro in early years. Later on, when they started getting exhausted, then people started to search the suitable sites in upper reaches. And as you know, as we go on in the upper reaches, things start becoming difficult, both in terms of the infrastructure as well as the accessibility and whole host of other issues in terms of construction methodology and the time schedules and all sorts of difficulties. Although there are some advantages also associated with it when we construct the projects in upper reaches. So that could be also the opinion that has also contributed significantly in the decline of rapid development of hydropower of late. And in addition to that, of course, most of the potential lies in Himalayas, and which we all know that the geology plays a very big part, particularly in underground structures. So I feel that gradually projects started experiencing surprises as if they started with a particular time schedule and cost, and subsequently, because of certain challenges and surprises, they got into a different trajectory and resulting into time and cost overrun. So in addition to what Mr. Agrawal has already told, whole host of the issues, these are also two major factors in my opinion have contributed a large to the slower pace of the hydropower development. And in addition to that, there are other, as we will be discussing, the interventions which hydro policy has already deliberated upon. Today also, we may also exchange views on that. And ultimately, I am happy that at least the focus is back on the action plan and the interventions which are required for picking up the pace which hydropower should. With these opening remarks, I would once again thank and look forward to have meaningful interaction on each of the points and try to get some insight from all these eminent experts from THDC and NHPC. And thank you so much for inviting.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to ask Mr. V.R. Srivastav, General Manager, Civil NHPC Limited, that what is your take? How do you see the journey of hydro sector in India till now and its contribution in making India energy surplus? Mr. V.R. Srivastav from NHPC.
Thank you, Gaurav, and good afternoon to all participants. From the side of NHPC also, I'd like to thank THDC for bringing us together on this wonderful platform. And in fact, I was quite happy and surprised also when I received a call yesterday that we are holding such a webinar. And we are in hydro sector, but we rarely get chance to come along and share our views. So in that line, I find that it's a very good, initiative. Maybe in the form of this, ongoing program of what Gaurav had told. So I think Mr. Agarwal has already laid down the history of hydropower development and the difficulties which are faced now in developing the balance potential. So the thing is that in line of that, we had come along a few months back, that was in June and July also, when we had an opportunity to give our collective suggestions to Government of India, Ministry of Power, while they are formulating this National Electricity Plan. Because all of us, we know that the inherent problems which are faced by the hydro sector, they need some kind of special attention, so that this journey of development which was there earlier and the shrinking development, that can be carried forward. So there are few factors which we made suggestions to Government of India, and those are under active consideration by the subcommittee, the committee which has been formulated to put forward the draft NEP. So we hope that the suggestions which we made by our collective wisdoms, they will be incorporated in the National Electricity Policy 2021, and those suggestions or the policy enablers, they will help our industry to grow further. And in as far as in the topics, we have put 2-3 points, that the need for the hydropower as a stabilizing mechanism or as for energy security, that is well established. This in the exercise which was taken by the call of Honorable Prime Minister 9 p.m. 9 minutes, that was in April 2020. There we saw that the backing down, overall backing down, the flexibility of hydropower was very well demonstrated when the overall backing down was of the order of around 30,000 megawatt in a matter of few minutes. And there the contribution of the hydro, it was almost 56% of that backing down. Means of the 36,000 megawatt which was backed down in those few minutes, around 17,000 megawatt was backed down by the hydropower plants. And whereas at that time the running capacity on load was only 21% of the total load, which the generating station. So that capability of flexibility and providing stability to the grid, that is well established. But as far as the saleability and the cost of hydropower which goes at the present moment, that is a big barrier. We see that when we go to the government for approval of our projects, that cost and tariff, that is a big barrier. And as rightly pointed out, that the capacities which were there in easier locations, they have already been developed, and now we've got plants which are in remote areas which require higher capital investment. So that the services which are provided other than electricity, the ancillary services, they need to be recognized. And those monetization of those services, that has also been a matter of discussion for long. But in reality, the fruits are yet to be born of those things. Like I'll just give an example that in the NHPC, we are now running 20 power stations, and of those, in the primary response, almost 6 out of 20 they are there, which are actively in which RGMO capability is there. But for that, actually, for the primary response, we are not getting any benefit as such. But another capability of hydro power stations which am I there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah. So the black start capability, 18 out of 20 power stations are already having in NHPC, and we are testing it on annual basis. So that is one of the service which hydropower can provide there in the form of grid stability, energy security. That is a vital point. And for the secondary response also, automatic generation control that is being installed in our power station. 8 out of our 20 power stations are already capable. So that way, that service we are already providing. And in as far as generating clean power, that is also there. In NHPC, we have got our 5 power stations registered under clean development mechanism, that is under VERA, and whatever carbon credits we are earning, that we are able to earn some money out of it. And 2 of our power stations, they are registered under clean development mechanism. So that very well demonstrates that how the hydropower is replacing the CO2, and that is being recognized by the certifying agencies also. And even if we are unable to reap the fruits of that CDM mechanism, of carbon credits mechanism, it very well goes to say that in NHPC itself, we are generating, say, around 24,000 million units every year. That is around 23 million ton of CO2 that is saved by generation. And if we consider the hydro generation of our country, that is of the order of around 150 GWH. So that much, the grid emission factor is around 0.9 at the moment. So 135 million tons of CO2 emissions are being saved by the clean hydropower. So that the hydropower is a clean source of energy, that is very well established. So that is there, and I think hydropower, I have got in mind that hydropower is something like a difficult child. It is not something like solar or wind, something which can be installed in 1 year. It is something, it needs constant support. So it is a long gestation, project, and there are so many numerous clearances, all those issues are there. So I think all of us, we have to come together and work continuously if we want this sector to develop. That is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request Shri Abhishek Agrawal, Chief General Manager and Head IT from Energy Efficiency Services Limited, to speak on the theme and give his opinion to the panelists.
Yeah, good evening, my fellow panelists. I am really thankful for THDC to invite me for this talk. Actually, I am in the nostalgia now, because I spent my childhood in the hydro project only. Like, my father was posted in the Rajasthan, one hydro project is there, a small hydro project, I think 33 megawatt, something like that, if I remember correctly. So I spent my childhood in that area only. So I feel very nostalgic while attending. They called me yesterday only. So I am very nostalgic about this. Yeah, this basically what I feel regarding this. I heard Agrawal sir also to telling, because hydro is going down and all, but somehow the media is not presenting like this. Media is telling, okay, we are approving number of projects like this. Number of projects are already approved by Government of India. So I totally agree. The gestation cycle is very high for the hydro project, so it may take time for us. But basically, if you see the beyond COVID, the challenge of the climate change remains the dominant issue of the energy sector right now. So for how and if IEA report, if we go about the from the IEA report, so by 2050, we need to generate whatever we have generated in last 100 years, in 30 years, next 30 years. So that is also a big challenge for for NHPC and THDC, all the hydro team members. That is what I feel basically. And last in 2021 also we had major fatality in Uttarakhand. All are aware. So there also, I think maybe our hydro project got whatever the gestation cycle must have increased because 2 hydro project got interrupted because of that. So that is what I feel. And number of government projects are already passed. So some 800 megawatt plants are already approved by government. So I believe that we will go ahead and we'll cross this barrier because NHPC is also there, TSDC, and number of organizations, hydro projects are running. I think we will be able to get through. And this, what Mr. Srivastava has already told, that I totally agree. While doing this shutdown of the power, it was a tremendous chaos. What I heard from the back end, from the other people also, that how we are going to maybe the entire grid will fail. So really, that at that time, hydro projects came into as a savior for us, for everybody. So I'm hopeful that we will sail through this also, and will reduce the carbon emission. Thank you very much.
थैंक यू सो मच मिस्टर अग्रवाल। अब मैं अनुरोध करूंगा श्री योगेश कुमार, ये सुपरिटेंडिंग इंजीनियर है उत्तर प्रदेश पावर कॉर्पोरेशन लिमिटेड से। श्री योगेश जी से अनुरोध है कि वो अपने विचार हमारे साथ साझा करें कि जर्नी ऑफ हाइड्रो सेक्टर और हाइड्रो सेक्टर का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है या हो सकता है इन मेकिंग इंडिया एनर्जी सरप्लस, उस पर अपने विचार हम सबसे साझा करें। श्री योगेश जी।
आप सभी टेरी THDC and I am very thankful to THDC and Allied Technomedia to invite me in webinar. I am very happy to join this because I was also associated with the hydro project from since long period. In initial stages, I was associated in TERI also. At that time, the process of approval of TERI project is going on. In 1987, 88 to 1992, when the project was in initial stages, TERI and Koteshwar both project were in initial stages. I was associated with the approvals from the various departments from the government of India, like the Forest Department, Environment Department, Planning Commission, and multiple UP and central government departments. So I am very happy to join this webinar with all of you. So presently, a major point has already told by the successor panelist, but I have to tell some important points in this webinar. We have the potential of 150 gigawatt, जिसमें से मैं थोड़ा हिंदी आधा इंग्लिश बोलता हूँ, जिसमें से हमने ना अभी तक केवल जो है मल्टीपल 46,000 का करीब हम लोगों ने इसमें ट्रैप किया है अभी तक हम लोगों ने, जो कि अगर टोटल हम कैपेसिटी की बात करते हैं तो हमारे 12.04% निकल कर आएगा ये पूरा अल्टीमेटली पूरा इंडिया का जितनी इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी है उसका। और स्मॉल मीडियम की बात करते हैं तो 4793 का करीब हमारा टैप किया है हम लोगों ने, जो कि 1.25% इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी का निकले आएगा। अगर हम टोटल इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी ऑफ इंडिया की बात करते हैं तो टोटल इंडिया इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी ऑफ इंडिया में से 13.29% कैपेसिटी ही केवल हम लोगों ने इंस्टॉल कर पाए हैं हम लोग अभी तक हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट पे। हमारे पास बहुत बड़ा एक स्कोप है अभी हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट को टैप करने के लिए, जिसके लिए हमें बहुत वर्क करने की आवश्यकता है और ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट भी है कि हम लोग इसको हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट को टैप कर लें। जबकि अगर हम इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनर्जी बात करते हैं, अगर एनर्जी की, तो एनर्जी के टर्म्स में ये कंट्रीब्यूशन हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट का 33% है। उसका रीजन ये है कि जब हम इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी की बात करते हैं तो विंड पावर का करीब 10% कंट्रीब्यूशन है, इसी तरह न्यूक्लियर, इसी तरह हमारा सोलर का 11% कंट्रीब्यूशन है। मगर जब हम इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनर्जी बात करते हैं तो एनर्जी के टर्म्स में हमारे पास वाटर का ऐसा रिसोर्स है जिसकी एनर्जी हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ले पाते हैं। बाकी विंड एनर्जी प्लस सोलर एनर्जी ये सब जो है हमारी डिपेंड करती है क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशंस के ऊपर, तो इसलिए और आवश्यक हो जाता है। और पानी का अगर हम लोग एक बार फ्लो हमारा निकल गया तो उसको हम लोग दोबारा यूज नहीं कर पाएंगे, तो बहुत आवश्यक है कि हम लोग इसको पूरा 100% टैप यूटिलाइज कर लें। अब सेकेंड इशू जो आता है इसमें कि इसका कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव और डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट के अप्रूवल्स का, तो हमें गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को की से अनुरोध करना होगा और उनके गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की तरफ से इसको एक कोई रूलिंग या इस तरह का कुछ लानी होगी कि हमें जितने भी हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट हैं उनकी अप्रूवल्स जो हैं एनवायरमेंट, फॉरेस्ट और मल्टीपल, विशेष करके फॉरेस्ट अप्रूवल जो हैं वो बड़ा इजी गोइंग और जल्दी तरह से मिल जाए, क्योंकि अगर अप्रूवल्स हमारी जल्दी मिलेंगी तो हम लोग हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट को इजली गोइंग और अल्टीमेटली पानी को टैप कर पाएंगे। आप समझ सकते हैं जितना डिले अप्रूवल होगा हमारा उतना ही हमारा जो पानी का रिसोर्सेज है हमारा बह जाएगा और हम उसको टैप नहीं कर पाएंगे पानी को। तो मैं एसोसिएटेड था इसमें टेरी के और कोटेश्वर मल्टीपल हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट के अप्रूवल्स में, तो मैंने देखा कि ये जो आपका ओरिजिनल डीपीआर आप समझिए कि टेरी की 1973-76 के करीब बनी थी और उस समय करीब 250 करोड़ करीब कॉस्ट थी उस समय। उसके बाद में मेरे अप्रूवल कराते 5-6 बार हम लोग अप्रूवल करा चुके थे डिफरेंट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के डिपार्टमेंट से, और उतने मल्टीपल अप्रूवल कराते इसकी कॉस्टिंग जो है रफली जो है 10 टाइम्स इंक्रीज कर गई थी केवल अप्रूवल के प्रोसेस करते। तो हमें इस पर विशेष ध्यान देना होगा कि अप्रूवल्स हमारी जल्दी हो जाए जिससे कि काम जल्दी हो जाए और ये एनर्जी जो हम वेस्ट कर रहे हो रही है हमारी वेस्ट एनर्जी को हम लोग यूटिलाइज करते हैं। सेकेंडली कि मैं उससे इस पर भी काफ़ी एसोसिएट रहा हूँ आपके हाइड्रो पावर हाउस पे चीला खुदरी कालागढ़ शिवरो इन सब पावर हाउस में मेरा पोस्टिंग रहा है जब मैं यूपीएससीबी में था, देन यूपीएससीबी में। प्रेजेंटली मैं यूपीपीसीएल में हूँ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में, तो काफ़ी एसोसिएट रहा हूँ। उस समय मैंने काफ़ी वर्क भी हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट पे किया है। विशेष करके एक मैं एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करना चाहूँगा। जब मैं खटीमा पावर हाउस पे था 2 एक्सपीरियंस है वहाँ के हाइड्रो का, इसलिए बहुत इम्पोर्टेंस है ग्रिड पर्सपेक्टिव से भी और हमारे और भी पर्सपेक्टिव से। जिस पर्सपेक्टिव से इसलिए कहना चाहूँगा कि मैं हाइड्रो खटीमा प्रोजेक्ट पर था तो उस समय जो है हमारा एक 132 का टावर जो कि पीलीभीत को फीड करता था, उसके बाद ग्रिड में कनेक्ट होती थी एनर्जी हमारी, वो एक स्टॉर्म में डैमेज हो गया। उसको डैमेज होने के बाद करीब हम लोगों ने खटीमा पावर हाउस को करीब 39.9 करीब मेगावाट का प्रोजेक्ट था। उस प्रोजेक्ट को रफली जो है 30 डेज के आसपास हम लोगों ने आइसोलेशन में चलाया उसको, उस ग्रिड को, और जो लोकल खटीमा और बाकी जगह का सप्लाई हम लोगों ने उससे मीट आउट की थी। इसी तरह एक और अचीवमेंट वहाँ का रहा था कि हम लोगों ने वर्ल्ड की कह सकते हैं पहली वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री में फर्स्ट टाइम जो हम लोगों ने खटीमा पावर हाउस की मशीन का अलाइनमेंट जो विदाउट डिवाटरिंग किया था, क्योंकि एक मशीन का ऑलरेडी जो डाउन स्ट्रीम गेट था, अप स्ट्रीम गेट तो सभी में थे, सभी में रहते हैं एज यूजुअल, डाउन स्ट्रीम गेट की वहाँ लिमिटेशन थी। 1951 का प्रोजेक्ट था, तो उसकी वजह से डाउन स्ट्रीम गेट केवल एक था हमारा। तो हमने क्या किया कि एक गेट पे हमारी ऑलरेडी एक मशीन एनुअल मेंटेनेंस में थी, तो हम लोगों ने एक मशीन डैमेज होने पर उसका एक्साइटर पायलट मेन और कॉमन एक्साइटर चेंज किया। तो उस समय उसको हम लोगों ने विदाउट डिवाटरिंग के 1997 की बात होगी करीब, 1997 में विदाउट डिवाटरिंग उसको वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री में पहली बार हमने अलाइनमेंट किया मशीन का। तो ये एक बड़ा वहाँ का जो एक एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करना चाह रहा था कि इस तरह का काम भी किया। तो मेरा कहना ये है कि अगर हम लोग हाइड्रो पावर सेक्टर का बहुत यूटिलिटी है, जब भी ग्रिड फेल होगा हमारा, तो ग्रिड फेल के समय तो इसकी बिल्कुल आवश्यकता पड़ेगी हाइड्रो पावर सेक्टर की, अदरवाइज हम लोग सस्टेन नहीं कर पाएंगे ग्रिड को थर्मल की वजह से। तो थर्मल प्रोजेक्ट चलाने के लिए हमें एनर्जी चाहिए, एनर्जी हमें मिलेगी हाइड्रो से, क्योंकि हाइड्रो एट ए स्टेट विद इन मिनट हम उससे ग्रिड को सप्लाई दे सकते हैं, तो बड़ा स्पीडली इसको वर्क कर सकते हैं। तो अभी तक जो हम लोग टैप कर पाए हैं उसके हिसाब से इसमें बहुत एक अच्छा पोटेंशियल है इस एनर्जी को टैप करने के लिए। तो अभी हमें बहुत वर्क करने की इसमें आवश्यकता है, जिसको कि हमें करना भी चाहिए और करना पड़ेगा इन फ्यूचर में। धन्यवाद बहुत बहुत आपका इसमें।
धन्यवाद श्री योगेश जी। Now I would like to request Shri R.N. Singh, Executive Director, Vishnugarh People Koti Project. I request Shri Singh to kindly share his valuable experience and his perception on journey of hydro sector in making India energy surplus. Over to you, Mr. Singh.
Namaskar, everyone, eminent panelist, Agarwal Sahab from ESL, Srivastava Sahab, Tripathi Sahab, Yogesh Kumar Sahab, LP Joshi Sahab और THDC के media cell. First of all, I would like to congratulate THDC media cell for organizing such a wonderful, event where we can discuss various aspects of hydro. A lot of things about hydro has already been spoken by our eminent panelist. Actually, one eminent speaker has spoken that we are only being judged by, or we are only being valued by only one product, that is power, energy. And there are so many ancillary benefit, indirect benefit, which is going to nation that is not monetized. Even for project like Tehri, we don't get any, financial benefit or benefit to the nation which could have been monetized. For example, since we are blessed with, lot of hydro resources, we actually don't know what is the meaning of water security. What is the meaning of guaranteed water supply to industry? What is the meaning of guaranteed water to irrigation, drinking water, etc.? We are getting it, cheaply. But if you will monetize this water resources, then obviously our cost of energy, which is directly related to capital cost, and all capital cost is loaded on energy, it will be certainly, reduced. Other ancillary services, which has already been spoken, like grid stability, we don't get anything for grid stability. For blackout support, what happened when grid collapsed and what was the role of Tehri project, everybody knows. But we neither get any monetary benefit nor get any media attention for that. We only get bad news in media that hydro is rehabilitating, hydro is doing that. We get very less media praise for our efforts in moderating floods, in providing, tourism, in providing job, in making remote, roads, bridges in remote locations, and that all cost goes to power component only. So lot has been spoken. I will focus on flood moderation by hydropower project and especially reservoir project. We all know, sir, that water is a very, very important resources, and maximum rain which happen in India in rainy season of 3 or 3.5 months, out of that 80% of rain we get in 40 days approximately. And with climate changes and the nature of rain, very intense rain in few days. So our challenge is to store the water. For storing the water, we need big reservoir. And what we do actually, hydropower projects are not, utilizing these water resources. They are just storing and releasing them and generating. And when there is a havoc of flood by rain, we are storing it. And when there is no water in lean season or river is polluted, we are releasing additional water to, even this additional water is going for irrigation, drinking water, but at the same time, we are improving the quality of water in the river system. So, flood moderation, in fact, we have discussed it in Ministry of Environment, and we have proved and people agreed that storing water is good for health of river system. The flood which happened in Alaknanda Bhagirathi Valley in 2013, you just imagine what could have happened if there was no Tehri Dam project. We got lot of praise from engineering fraternity, but media almost ignored the great, service done for the nation by this hydropower project. So, with this tone, with this, prospect of hydropower project, which is largely being ignored and absolutely non-monetized, if that two aspects are, given proper attention in right perspective, certainly future of hydropower project is very, very bright. Government of India is doing lot of efforts, has already been, mentioned by our panelist, like, RPO declaring renewable 25 megawatt and above, declaring renewable energy, and also giving monetary help in enabling infrastructure. These are very good, initiative. At least I am very happy that Government of India has recognized the bottleneck of hydro sector, and we are moving in very, very right direction, and future of hydro is quite bright. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for sharing your illustrious experience and insight on our theme. Now, I would like to request Shri LP Joshi, General Manager EM Design, THDC India Limited, to share his perspective and how he perceived the journey of hydro sector and its contribution in making India energy surplus. Over to you, Mr. Joshi.
Namaskar to everybody. I'm very happy to be within the eminent panelists present over here. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Gaurav to give me an opportunity to speak on this platform. So today's topic is very relevant in the sense that we all in the government, we all in the public sector, we all in the private sector are looking for the grid stability. And grid stability cannot be ensured without the role of hydro sector. Before that, I would like to go back to the history of hydro sector, hydropower. History of hydro turbine goes back to the early 19th century, where water wheel, after a lot of refinement and innovations, took the shape of a hydraulic turbine based on the principle of fluid mechanics. And after that, the rapid industrialization during the period necessitated the exploration of different types of resources to generate electricity, and hydroelectricity was amongst the preferred source along with the coal, petroleum, and biogas. During this period, India also witnessed the installation of its first 130 kilowatt hydroelectric power plant in Sidrapong in 1987. Later, the megawatt scale project was set up on the river Kaveri with an initial capacity of 8 megawatt in 1902. This was followed by construction of large dams, large hydro projects like Bhakra, Rihand, Gandhi Sagar, Koyna, Sravasti to facilitate rapid economic and social development of the country. The purported benefits of these large dams, as we all know, that it provides water for irrigation, it provides water for industries, the power generation, and the multi-purpose dam projects were recognized as the modern temples of India once by our first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, if we talk in terms of the grid stability, the role of pump storage plant comes in the way. So PSP is a kind of is a variant of hydropower which works on different principle, as it requires two reservoirs at two different elevations, and the available water is recycled between these two reservoirs. We generate electricity when the system is in the need of the power, and pump back the water from lower reservoir to the upper reservoir when the electricity in the system is surplus and cheap. India has set a target of 175 gigawatt of variable renewable energies by 2022 and 450 gigawatt by 2030. Then, as we all of know, that the nature of renewable energy, especially the solar and wind, is quite intermittent and unpredictable. With this much of infirm power coming to the grid, this is going to pose a great challenge in the stability and the grid security. So we need to have that much of flexibility in generation in terms of storage. So ultimately, we need to have the balancing power to ensure the grid security. So PSP is one variant of the hydroelectric projects that can serve the purpose and that can supply that amount of electricity at the moment's notice, because the storage we want in a very short notice, so that the whatever withdrawal from the whatever quantum of power is withdrawn from the grid, or whatever quantum of power is added to the grid, that doesn't get destabilized. So besides, now it has been well established now that PSP is a competent source of peak shaving, frequency regulation, fast ramping, and a lot many ancillary services like voltage control, like frequency control, and MBR control in the system. It is a globally recognized that PSP can play a very important role in the grid stabilization. Now, it is a very important event on some speakers have already quoted that event on 9th April, when there is a massive response to our Honorable Prime Minister's appeal, and millions of Indians across the country switched off their lights at their homes and lit candles or lamps on Sunday, 9th April night. The effect of this overwhelming response were also visible in the power sector, with all India demand falling by 31089 megawatt between 20:45 hours and 21:10 hours. The entire show was managed scrupulously with the help of flexibility provided by the hydro stations. Here, the fall in absolute term was not important. The important was that the ramping up and ramping down rate exhibited by the hydro stations. The maximum rate of change in total generation was 4312 megawatt per minute and 2839 megawatt per minute. The maximum ramping rate of 2728 megawatt per minute and 1977 megawatt per minute provided by the hydro generators. The response of Tehri was 340 megawatt per minute, with the load variation from 760 megawatt to 100 megawatt. So that was a great role played by the hydro sector in stabilizing the grid during this event. Now, we can say that the hydropower is playing the role of ultimate guardian in the power sector, in the electric grid, by playing all the needed roles and compensating the shortcomings of other sources of energy. Now, there are some constraints which are coming in the way of hydro development, as we all of some of the speakers have already pointed out, like the technical constraints, like difficult investigation, inadequacies in tunneling methods, financial like deficiencies in providing long-term loans, tariff-based issues, some managerial weaknesses like poor contract management, geological surprises in the Himalayan region, especially in the Himalayan region where underground tunneling are required, inaccessibility of the area, delay in land acquisition, R&R issues, law and order problem in militant areas. All these aspects have been covered under the national, are being covered under the National Electricity Plan. We TSDC and NHPC have jointly put forth our points, which are to be addressed in the National Electricity Plan. And I'm happy that Mr. V.R. Srivastava is here, who was given the responsibility along with me to make those points and give it to the ministry for incorporation into the National Electricity Plan. So law and order problems are there, which also are coming on the way to the development of the hydro projects. The pump storage hydropower project is one of the options where the pump which is important in the stabilization of grid, and which is very, very important, allowing high penetration of variable energy sources with the grid. Now we have chalked out certain points which we have recommended for incorporation in the national hydro policy, which are already covered in the national hydro policy, like declaring all hydro power projects irrespective of the capacity as renewable energy sources. Hydro purchase obligation has already been notified as a separate entity. Tariff rationalization measures, including extending the useful life to 40 years, would encourage the development of hydropower. Budgetary support for flood moderation, storage hydroelectric for the in terms of the storage hydroelectric projects. Now we can have a lot of tourism and adventure sports in the projects having large spread of reservoir, like Tehri Reservoir has been identified as a mega tourism center by Government of India, and this is giving a large employment to a large population in the area. So in a nutshell, we can say that the role of hydropower has changed over 100 years of history. Initially, it was used as a base load provider. Then it acted as a peak supporter. Then now, as of now, the hydro projects are being used as a facilitator for energy storage. And with the increase of coal-based generation, hydropower has played a complementary role also. Now it has all the capability to provide reactive power support, both in leading and lagging modes. That is a unique property of the hydro stations. It has an excellent ramp up and ramp down features and fast switching from turbine to generator mode or motor to pump mode and back to condenser mode, which helps in integrating not so flexible sources of renewable energy with the grid. So in the nutshell, I can say that the hydropower has played the role of ultimate guardian of electric grid by playing all the needed roles and compensating the shortcomings of other sources of energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. Now I would like to rope in Shri Amitabh Tripathi, Senior Executive Director, Wabcos Limited. And I would just like to ask from where Mr. Joshi has left, that he was mentioning that over the period of time, there are certain conventional benefits from hydropower projects, such as drinking water and irrigation. These are the conventional benefits of hydropower projects. But over the period of time, we all have seen that hydropower projects have also given some unconventional benefits to the society. For example, hydropower projects these days are developed as one of the major tourist destinations. Apart from that, there are various adventure sports academies which have been established near the vicinity of hydropower projects. So I would like to have the opinion of Shri Tripathi, that how do you see the unconventional benefits from hydropower projects in terms of adventure sports, tourism, skill development as a contribution to society? Dr. Tripathi?
Yeah, you have asked a very pertinent question, but with your permission, I would also like to add. It was really insightful to hear from eminent experts from NHPC, THDC, another organization. Being WAPCOS being in consultancy, I would only like to add for the benefit of others, based on our experience, that in the whole project cycle of hydropower, generally the construction or the investment and other parts take center stage right from the word go, and the design, and more importantly the planning part, very initial part, I would like to specifically emphasize that it is large. See, the construction and design are more or less structured, where once the project gets into construction, you have the codes, you have the procedures, you have the methods, and all those things are well defined. So the factors influencing are also well known. But when the project is being identified at a very beginning stage, when the river stretch, one a group of multidisciplinary experts are looking at and making a decision, and then leading it to the DPR. And one speaker also talked about the delay in the clearances. So partly, of course, there are procedural requirements, but one factor I would like to emphasize, that there are number of, the ingenuity of the engineers who are involved in the planning is too much. This is the only phase in the hydropower project cycle where the individual skills or ingenuity plays a larger role. And once the project gets into DPR, and then going back and forth during the appraisal stage is primarily emanating from the beginning. And one thing what I would suggest, that in DPR the alternative studies are there. Now MOE is also asking, DPR also wants that alternatives should be exhausted, but they should be meaningful alternatives, and sound in-depth deliberation should take place before the project is the DPR is cleared, and a particular alternative with all the project components based on the specific level of investigation is cleared. Therefore, once that is done, then I don't think that the surprises which we are talking about later at the construction stage, or all other things, would be substantially minimized. That is what in WAPCOS we are mostly into the planning identification stage. So that is what my personal experience has been so far in various projects. And secondly, based on our experience, I would also touch upon the pump storage part. See, in this pump storage part also, like in 63, when we started with so much of enthusiasm, and we started with lot of bulk reports and lot of ventures in the hydropower project by various developers. And ultimately, during the process, they realized that when they started facing challenges, then they started opting it out. I think pump storage, based on our experience in last 20 years, in fact, we were the first in Purulia in 1990. What I feel that still there is a great rush in the case of pump storage project. They have a very specific planning and design aspects associated to it, and they are different from each other, like closed loop pump storage and open loop pump storage, and the site is specific. And also because the megawatt is misnomer in case of pump storage. So there lies the very important decision making as to whether you want 8-hour generation with 7-meter diameter tunnel or penstock, or you want 9-meter diameter tunnel, higher capacity with 4-hour generation. So all those things, and coupled with the civil engineering aspect of that particular layout, I think as a policy maker, there has to be a structured and robust mechanism for pump storage project, and the policy which we are expecting in some time in future. These aspects, planning and design aspects we have experienced in hydro, should also be applicable and taken care of suitably in the pump storage project, so that the projects on priority, in fact, we have given our suggestions of ranking them before and taking them up in a phased manner, so that they are not jumbled up initially. So all those things from WAPCO side, and based on our experience, we would like to submit. And we are also putting forward our point of views as far as the planning, design, and identification aspects of these two hydro and pump storage is very into each other. Now coming to the question which you asked about the unconventional benefit which hydropower offers. See, like this is a very important aspect, like we are experiencing in vaccine hesitancy. Similarly, when a project, hydro project comes in a particular area, people are emotionally attached to that project. So more and more conventional benefits are put forth, and they are propagated in a proper manner to the local populace, and then convincing them that it would translate into monetization and they will accrue benefit out of this project. Then definitely there will be lot of support generation which will ultimately indirectly facilitate the clearances in R&R and other associated issues, because ultimately everything boils down to the benefits to the local population, and that is what is hampering hydropower projects in a big way. So I think the unconventional benefits such as the tourism, in fact, this TERI of course can be a role model, and as one of the eminent speakers, if that happens on ground, then particularly the large storage projects can be converted, and then innovative thought process can also be employed right away, because in reservoir projects there are a lot of alternatives of innovative sports and all other things. But for the run of the river schemes, because of its small pondage and fluctuation, there could be some there is a room to think over of some innovative benefits to be derived and convinced to the local people. Of course, these unconventional benefits can result into employment generation, and also the revenues can be suitably factored into the improvement of the overall ecological systems, and that those funds can also be properly earmarked for the long-term development, because the project will be there for 50 years, 60 years. So all those aspects can also be factored in while dealing with the innovative or unconventional benefits from hydro. And there has to be a mindset change and the paradigm shift in the minds of the local people and the state and the owner at large, as to these hydro projects are not one particular purpose. They have a variety and spectrum of benefits can be offered, and on the top of it, the benefits which are well structured and well defined, that the carbon emission, climate change, all those things will always be there as an inherent benefit. But in addition to that, in my opinion, these unconventional benefits will go in a long way, directly as well as indirectly, in facilitating the pace of the development of hydropower and also the pump storage. So that is what I feel as of now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tripathi. Now I would like to rope in Mr. V.R. Srivastava from NHPC, and I would like to ask from Mr. Srivastava that in 1947 the capacity addition of hydro sector was somewhere around 503 or 508 megawatt. In the year 2021, the capacity addition from hydro sector is roughly around 46,300 megawatt. So how do you see this whole journey of hydro sector and this onward trend, and what is the future roadmap with which we can enhance the contribution of hydro sector in Indian power scenario? Mr. Srivastava.
Thank you, Gaurav. Actually, the statistical data you have rightly pointed out, and but the fact is that the way development of projects was looked at earlier, it has quite changed. I mean, there's so many issues related to availability of land, environmental concern, e-flow, and there's been an activism by the people who are native to the area where you are going to build hydropower. That is one of the main resistance. And as you see that, hydropower potential is mainly located in areas which are there in the Himalayas or in the northeast. So those areas are such that land is already scarce. Those are what do you say, mountainous terrain is there, and wherever the people are living, that is the only area which they have where they are living, or what do you say, cultivating the land or subsisting on the environment. So that is one of the major resistance which we have felt, because NHPC has been sitting on projects for as long as 20 years. Something like Dibang or Tawang also 14 years. So that is one of the concern of the native people which we have to address properly, because they are not very keen to either lose their land or want people to come in and disturb the serene and what is a environment in which they are staying, because they do not have the need for the electricity which we are having. So that is one of the things where we have to what is say get the people along and convince them on how to go around. And when we go to the statistics, already at present around 10,000 megawatt of projects are in construction, which are in various phases, and these projects by and large they have been delayed from the original schedule due to a variety of reasons, and that has made the what do you say, cost also higher for the projects. For example, in case of our Subansiri project, the original what do you say approved estimate was around 6,300 crores, and now with the delay of almost say more than 10 years, the cost has gone up to 20,000 crores. That is an estimate which we have made for the completion, which is yet to come and which we are targeting in the year 2024. So with those kinds of escalation and overruns in cost, it becomes very difficult for a developer to sustain or even what do you say convince the stakeholders that why we should go for construction of such projects which are so costly, and the power as compared to the other what do you say renewable sources which are giving you power at say around 2 rupees per kilowatt hour, how we are going to sell our power which is in the order of 5 rupees per kilowatt hour. That is a challenge which we have to meet. And but still, when we see at the shelf of the projects which are available, there are around what do you say 22,000 megawatt DPRs which are already been concurred by CEA. Those projects, they are lying on shelf, but they could not take off due to some reason or the other. So those are the things which we have to address. And as Mr. Tripathi has rightly said, that we have to optimize things. We have to what do you say devise novel ways how to make the what do you say optimize the design on all those things, and to what do you say minimize and mitigate the effect which the project has on the environment. So I think those are the areas, and as Mr. Joshi has already said, that we have put in all those things in writing and submitted our what is suggestions to Government of India, and now they have to take a call on that. If those policy initiatives they are brought into the what do you say the document, policy document, then we have to bring what do you say other stakeholders also on board, and then keep up our effort to what do you say develop the hydro potential which we are having in our country. Like for the INDC also, that 450 gigawatt capacity addition by 2030, the what do you say optimum generation mix which has been worked out by a study by CEA, the hydro capacity stands at around 60,000 megawatt. So from where we are standing at say 46,000 megawatt at present, and 10,500 already under construction. So at least projects for 5 to 7,000 megawatt have to be started if we plan to achieve that level of hydro addition. And definitely the share is going to fall down with because the installed capacity by the end of 2030 will be the order of 800 gigawatt. So that is there to stay. But the inherent what do you say benefits of the hydro, they are also there, which the grid operators have already recognized, and those services we should continue to provide for the stability and stability of the grid and energy security of the country. That is all. And thank you once again, THDC, for giving the opportunity for coming together and having such a meaningful session on hydropower. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srivastav. Now, I would like to ask Shri P.K. Agarwal, Executive Director, THDC India Limited, to explicitly brief our audience that we also have a small hydro project of 24 megawatt, that is Dhukwa SHP. So can you just throw some light on what sort of a project it is for our common audiences, and what is the role and scope of small hydro projects in terms of Indian power sector with regard to hydropower sector and the contribution of small hydropower projects? Mr. Agarwal.
THDC India Limited has developed a small hydro project of 24 megawatt capacity in near Jhansi, and it is running very well and contributing a lot to the national benefit. Small hydro is important, and because there are many opportunities to develop small hydro and to contribute in the national capacity, and it also provides certain benefits, as small hydro was recognized as renewable earlier, and a lot of government has already given incentives, and so that private sector and small entrepreneurs can also come and develop small hydro projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Do we have RN Singh, sir, Executive Director, VPHEP? Sir, I would like to take your opinion on, as we know that apart from Tihri Dam, there are other large hydro projects also, and specifically Tihri Dam plays a very important role in terms of maintaining water flow, especially on the occasions like Mahakumbh and auspicious snans and all that. So this is also one of the intangible benefits of Tihri and other large hydropower projects. Would you like to throw some light on this issue?
Thank you, Gaurav. Lot of thoughts has been shared on various aspects of hydro projects, its implementation, and benefit arising out of it. Again, you have, Gaurav, selected very right word, intangible benefit. Actually, intangible benefit, because we are not considering it tangible. In fact, it is tangible and it is flowing free of cost. That's why you are telling it intangible, and that is the pain of hydro actually. We are offering many such benefits, and frankly speaking, it can be quantified in monetary terms. Our eminent speakers have touched, Mr. Joshi has touched the contribution made by THDC, Tehri project of THDC, when there was grid failure. So I will not go into other detail. I will stick upon the benefit being provided by Tehri project or other large projects. Just consider a scenario when you don't have hydropower project like Tehri and Bhakra. You just consider a scenario. The green revolution of Punjab and Haryana, related industry and industrial growth in North India, I will not hesitate to dedicate fully to Bhakra project and attached canal system. What is the cost of Bhakra electricity today, when almost all the capital cost has been depreciated? It is around 80, 90 paise, 70 paise. So what we do in hydro projects, we don't monetize all costs related to hydro project. Let it be rehabilitation, let it be bridge, road, etc., etc. It is all loaded on hydro, and at one side we are penalized by loading the cost, and other side we are ignored when we have to monetize the other benefits in terms of direct money coming to the project. So anyway, I will lot up. I will say stick to my point. Water security and benefit coming to general public. Say Kumbh Snan. It happens in Magh. Maybe Magh. It is December or maybe January. And Makar Sankranti Asnan, it comes in January. It is a big religious festival on the whole, belt of Ganges and all over India. It is celebrated in different way. But if it is Ganges, there is no water in that lean season. Tehri project is rescuing since 2007 when the project was commissioned and we had water storage. When we have commissioned Tehri project, there was a study conducted by Agriculture Research Institute, Modi Nagar, that what was the benefit, again indirect benefit of securing water for irrigation. 1600 crore additional grain produced in this command area, that is Upper Ganga Canal, and the command area of canal system of UP. So if you are having water, guaranteed water, secured water, ability when you open the water through a tap, it will always help the economy. It will always help the industry, and we can count many numbers. So in that perspective, you see what is happening in Australia. They are constructing dam not for power. They are constructing big reservoir for water security. Government is investing hydro, like in old days we were even Dhukwa project, on which TSDC has very smartly innovated 24 megawatt hydropower project and commissioned it. It was initially a irrigation project. Power is byproduct of that. So having water is always great. It will help in recreation. It will help in keeping the health of the river system. In the lean period, when there is no water in the river naturally, and we have a reservoir in the upstream in the system, water quality is always better due to ability of additional water which we have stored. So at least in my opinion, for providing all this benefit, we should have at least 1 to 2 large storage project in all our river system. That is my submission, and that is my whenever I speak, I always emphasize that how water is important. It is not only for electricity. Nowadays, Mr. Joshi has touched a point that now hydropower projects are guardian of security and safety of our transmission system. We are every minute we are ready to give some addition generation to keep your grid safe, for which hydropower project should be commended for its excellent job. It comes as an indirect benefit. So, and it is clean. So hydropower, reservoir-based hydropower, irrespective of their many challenges. It should be in the system, it should be in the grid, and it should be in all major river system. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Now I would like to ask Mr. Abhishek Agrawal, as he has a very rich experience in overseeing digital transformation in critical and diverse sectors such as telecom and automobile. So keeping this in mind, how do you see digital transformation taking shape in Indian power sector? Mr. Agrawal.
Yeah, if you see digital transformation, like it is a process of change. If I say digital transformation is a process of change where I am putting the new technologies. People think digital transformation is just putting the some systems for the payroll, etc. But if you see in the power sector right now, we are not putting so many technology, and I think we are lagging in in this sector. If you see technology-wise, digital transformation is coming from the top, not from the bottom up. Every time, like being an IT person since starting, I see generally the IT person are treated as a service person in any of the industry. So if people are treating, if you are involved in the digital transformation, the approach should be from the top to bottom, not from the bottom to top. So if a power industry has to adopt this type of processes, if power industry has to go for the digital transformation, then we need to change the attitude of the entire industry. Not is I am not talking specifically for the power sector, but for the every industry. Like I worked in the automobile industry, defense sector, I worked in the oil and gas sector, number of sectors I worked. Basically, I was a digital transformation project person. So I have seen it was a top-down approach wherever we have implemented the project for the digital transformation. So everybody has to change the perception. Sometimes when we are implementing the digital transformation projects, we have seen as a IT person that people are thinking that our job will go off, something like that. Like if I am implementing, say, payroll process also, people are thinking my job will go off because what will I do? But if you see technically and industry practice, number of jobs are increasing only. When we are when we are implementing digital transformation, number of jobs will increase. Only thing is that people has to change the area. If I am working in a payroll section, or say I am working in a finance section, maybe I need to put lots of effort in learning the IT technology, and my job prospects will go more only, not the less. So the thinking has to change. First thing is that, and it is not just like being a IT person. People are implementing. People are implementing just a new technology is coming, say blockchain is coming, I will implement in the company. But somebody has to see the ROI also of the project. So people are, as a IT person, people are not looking at IT technology. They are just implementing the technology. But people are not thinking what is the ROI, what my company is getting. So project professional, if you see project professional point of view, number of projects are getting failed because IT people are just implementing the project, not looking the business prospect, not giving the ROI of the project. So everybody has to see that thing. And as a team, we need to implement the digital transformation project in the company, not alone. IT department cannot do alone any of the projects. So we need to work as a team with the business, with the guidance of the senior people, and business has to come into the picture as a business transformation guys also. So IT will support the thing, but we need to work hand in hand. So that is why the digital transformation projects are getting failed in not in India. It's a pan world. The scenario is like this. If you see the data, 3% of the projects are only successful. Like I am giving the definition of successful where my projects are cost overrun, or I am putting my times are like if it's a project of 2 years, it is getting completed in 5 years, 6 years. So as a team, we need to complete the project. So that is a basic assumption for the digital transformation success. That and then the digital transformation we need to implement because everybody is running on the data. So I say people are telling oil is data. For me, electricity is a data because I am working in the energy company. So electricity is data, and we are having lots of data. So like other gentlemen, sir is there, Yogesh sir is there. He is working in the smart meter. He knows lots of data we are collecting in the smart meter project. So data can be utilized anyway. Like we can put lots of information to the user. We can, like grid failure, people are telling sometimes grid failures happens. We can also stop because of this data. If we are having data, we know that what is going to happen with this data. So the digital transformation IT team has to see the end to end of the project, what business benefit we are going to get, and there I need support from senior people who will come into the picture, and it is a dictum has to be issued from the senior people that this project has to go on, and people have to follow the guidelines. Then only projects will get successful in any of the industry, be it power, be it electricity, be it automobile, any industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal. Now I would like to request Mr. Krishna from ELITS to carry on the online virtual certifications ceremony as a token of acknowledgement for our esteemed panel for today's webinar. Over to you, Mr. Krishna.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. It was indeed a very insightful discussion on the topic of the journey of the hydro sector in India and the contribution of the hydro sector in India's energy security. And it was quite enlightening to listen to a very esteemed panel here comprising speakers from THDC, speakers from WebCos, from NHPC, from Energy Efficiency Services Limited, and also from Uttar Pradesh Power Corporation. The hydro sector in India has indeed gone miles and miles of journey from installed capacity of 508 megawatt, as one of the speakers was mentioning in his opening remarks, in 1947 to approximately 46,000 now currently. The huge journey made by the sector in the past 75 years of India's independence. Also, if we take into consideration the total capacity, the total potential of the sector with the potential of 145,000 megawatt, India ranks 5th globally in terms of hydro potential. So huge opportunities are there going forward from here. And these opportunities would further be complemented by India's economic progress, because the economic development of any country is directly proportional to the energy consumption and vice versa. The more economically we develop, more would be the demand of energy, and more would be the demand of energy, more would be the quest towards development. And these opportunities will further be complemented by our commitment to the climate obligations. By 2030, India is committed to have 40% of its installed capacity in renewables in the total energy metrics. So therefore, from all the point of view, there is massive potential in the hydropower sector, right from the independence to the future. But having said so, there is threat of environmental impact also. We all have seen the massive tragedies in the past, particularly in Himalayas. In Kedarnath, we saw in 2013. Very recently, last year, we saw in Chamoli also. So keeping in mind these environmental impact also, the jury is still out whether the large projects, the temples of modern India, as mentioned by our then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, are they still relevant in current context? But one way out is a sustainable development. One very important aspect, as mentioned by Gaurav in his opening remarks, that while we have all seen the conventional benefits of the hydro sector, there is an unconventional benefit also, which we have been able to develop in recent past. And that benefit is the development of hydro projects as sites of tourism attractions. So this is a classic example of community involvement of communities, involvement of the local populace, taking from the community and giving back to the community. And similarly, taking from the nature and giving back to the nature. So a very bright potential going forward from here. Thank you once again, all the panelists. I would now request my backend team to, as a customary token of gratitude, to present their speaker certificates to all the esteemed panelists here. This certificate of appreciation is for Mr. Amitabh Tripathi, Senior Executive Director, WebCos Limited. Thank you, Mr. Tripathi, for taking out time at a very short notice and giving your rich insight into the hydro sector at this forum. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much to THDC and ELITS, and I am really privileged and thankful and grateful for this honor. And it was really, really very insightful for me as on personal basis to hear to all these experts. Thank you so much.
The next certificate is for Mr. P.K. Agrawal, Executive Director Technical, THDC India Limited. Thank you, Mr. Agrawal, for your opening remarks and also for giving us an opportunity to have an insightful discussion on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra, for this ratification. Thank you very much.
Then we had with us Mr. R.N. Singh. Mr. R.N. Singh is the Executive Director in THDC India. Thank you, Mr. Singh, for sharing your inputs here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saab. And thank you very much, Gaurav, Team Social Media THDC, for excellent job. And thank you for inviting. Namaskar.
Then we had another speaker from EESL, Mr. Abhishek Agrawal, Chief General Manager and Head of IT in Energy Efficiency Services Limited. Mr. Abhishek Agrawal.
Thank you,
Mr. Agrawal.
And thank you, Mr. Mishra ji. Thank you, Mishra.
Production of energy is one thing, and efficiently distributing that energy and managing that energy with the help of technology is another thing. So thank you, Mr. Agrawal, for taking out time and coming here.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Then we have Mr. LP Joshi. Thank you, Mr. LP Joshi. Mr. Joshi is General Manager in THDC India Limited.
Thank you, Mr. Ji. Thank you, Mr. Ji. Thank you, Gaurav, for giving me this honor. Thank you very much.
Then we had a very insightful discussion from Mr. V.R. Srivastava. Mr. V.R. Srivastava, General Manager from NHPC India Limited. Thank you. From the core industry, you were able to give us a very meaningful insight into this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. It was quite an insightful discussion, and having a chance to listen to so many eminent speakers on this forum. And definitely it will be a great help in formulating our ideas, how to carry forward the journey of the hydropower engineering in India development. Thank you.
Then the next speaker, Mr. Yogesh Kumar, Superintendent Engineer and Nodal Officer Smart Meter in UP Power Corporation. Thank you, Mr. Yogesh Kumar, for taking out time and sharing your rich inputs.
Thank you, Mr. Ji, and THDC and Allied for giving me opportunity to attend the webinar and giving my thought to the panelists and speaker. Okay, thank you.
I also take this opportunity to present a token of gratitude, a speaker certificate for Mr. Gaurav Kumar, the social media officer in THDC India Limited, who was the brain behind this webinar and who had actually conceptualized this webinar in consultation with the media partner, Elas Technomedia. Thank you, Mr. Gaurav Kumar.
Thank you so much, Krishna ji. On behalf of Social Media Center THDC India Limited, I would like to thank our media partner ELITS and our knowledge partner eGov for making this webinar a successful intervention. The reason behind this intervention was to bring the different mind of different PSUs of hydro sector to a common platform so that we can have a meaningful brainstorming session as well as exchange of ideas which can mutually benefit the hydro sector as well as the common people of India, who will be in a better position to understand the contribution of hydropower sector in India's energy development and overall enhancement of India as a country and its citizen. Thank you so much for making this webinar a valuable experience. And I hope we will be having these kinds of events regularly at regular interval of time. And I would like to explicitly thank THDCIL management for their able guidance and vision. Under their visionary leadership, we were in a position to execute this intervention. Thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully, we will meet very soon on a webinar like this with a different topic relating to hydropower sector or society in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बात के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया।